Baker and Black each bought stock in the company for $1 a share, while the others paid approximately $16 a share. Early in 1963, when Baker's Carousel Motel in Ocean City, Maryland, ran into financial difficulties, it was bought by ServU for $1 million. That's from the Greenfelt Jungle Reed and Damaris, page 218. McWillie, Baker, and Jones were involved in numerous transactions together, one of which was the incorporation of Great America, the conglomerate company. The incorporating papers in Carson City, Nevada, dated April 27, 1962, lists Abe Fortas as vice president, general counsel, and director. There is not sufficient evidence made public yet to connect Fortas with the assassination conspiracy. That's from NASA, Nazis, and JFK, the Torbett document and the JFK assassination, which is available, or was available, from Adventures Unlimited Press. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. I'm going to talk about several issues, so I need to make this very quick. First of all, Obama's supposed healthcare reform. His administration is fucking flooded with healthcare lobbyists, which are going to address no fucking real issues in this situation. That is, to reduce the excessive costs of prescription drugs, to reduce the excessive costs of healthcare. There are very vague terms used in press reports about progress being made in the Senate and House for healthcare reform legislation, which address the idea of cost reduction. But in fact, I see absolutely nothing in the way of specifics to tell me that there's going to be any significant fucking cost reduction. Instead, what we have is the usual same bullshit that we get when we're talking about funding some new program. And that is, let's throw on some more fucking taxes, as if the people in this country are not paying enough as it is. Now, having said that, if new taxes are going to be paid, they should be paid by the wealthiest, because they're the only ones, quite frankly, who have any motherfucking money left to pay any fucking taxes. Now, if taxes are required to be paid, it should be the rich that have to pay them. Simple as that. Only because they're the only ones that have any money to do it. Okay? But I do not support the general idea of raising taxes to try to pay for some program and then forcing it on people. Now remember that part of the same so-called reform proposal says that people who refuse to get coverage could be penalized 2.5% of their adjusted gross income, which is what you report on your taxes. So I guess that's what, $250 for every $10,000 you make? So that could be quite substantial for people who make a lot of money. Now, having said that, if you are healthy and refuse to have coverage, you should be able to go without insurance if you want to. But on the other hand, you should be held completely fucking responsible for paying your bills. If you incur thousands of dollars in medical bills, you should have to pay that. Because you're saying, I do not want to get coverage, thinking I'm not going to need coverage, and then if you do have to have some medical procedure done, you should have to pay for it. Simple as that. Personal fucking responsibility. Instead of penalizing people. And they're using the idea that people are going to refuse to get coverage as a way, as part of the funding for this reform proposal, which is nothing like reform in my view. Instead, go after the fucking CEOs of these pharmaceutical companies, of these giant healthcare plans. Go after the non-profits that continuously make profit, and do something along reform lines in that regard before you decide to start taxing people and penalizing them for not getting coverage. Next, the swine flu. I'm so sick of hearing about the swine flu. You know, there have been 211 deaths in the United States, according to the CDC, so far this year. 211 deaths, okay? And that's of, I don't know, something like 39,000 confirmed cases. Now, I did the math on that, and it turns out that the swine flu has a 0.005% mortality rate, according to the numbers that the CDC provides right now, okay? That's less than 1/100th, or it's 5/100ths of a percent, or 5,000ths of a percent. I'm not 500/1000ths of a percent. Okay, I'm not really good with math, as you can tell, but 0.005% in any case mortality rate, okay? Now, every year in the United States, 36,000 people die from the regular flu. 36,000 people die from the regular flu or complications from it. So far this year, we've had 211 people dead as a result of H1N1, the swine flu. Even if we grant that the second half of the year is 10 times as more deadly, and you have 2,100 people dying in the second half of the year to the 211 deaths so far, that would still be less than 3,000 people who died from swine flu in the United States. Compare that to the 36,000 that die every year from the regular flu. If there was really some sense of concern about a so-called pandemic, don't you think that there would be efforts made to make a pandemic every fucking year against the regular fucking flu? And there isn't. So, what does that tell you? There's an agenda driving this entire swine flu or H1N1 vaccination program that they have up their sleeves. So watch that closely. If it becomes mandatory, I have to wonder why. And it's not to protect you from swine flu. Afghanistan is turning out to give us the deadliest month so far for coalition troops over there. And I see that the British general in charge, who is close to retirement over there, is calling for more boots on the ground, which is what just about every commander that has been in Afghanistan has called for ever since the war began. So we're looking at a quagmire. We've been there for years and years and years, and there's been no really significant quelling of all of the areas of Afghanistan. Yes, you have some semblance of a government there now, but the vast majority of the country is still lawless. So it's turning into another Vietnam for the United States, and certainly not very good for any of the other so-called coalition members that are on board over there. But I do see some additional activity with the British because of their losses recently in Afghanistan. So, you know, more troops. Why aren't we surprised? And just because now we have troops out of the cities in Iraq, violence has risen there. But you can bet that if any troops are removed from Iraq, which is not going to happen, but if it was, they would all be transferred over to Afghanistan to fight this ridiculous war over there that really, why did we even get involved in it in the first place? Finally, one final note about Israel and the recent war in Gaza. Apparently some Israeli troops have come out quietly and said that some of their actions in Gaza have been pretty horrid. And a recent report released showed that Israeli soldiers used Palestinians as human shields. They blew up and destroyed structures that served no strategic purpose. And some soldiers said they burst into homes and looted possessions just because they enjoyed it. And this should come as no surprise because the Israelis have consistently treated the Palestinians as though they were fucking dirt. So, and of course it's no surprise that the Israeli administration would decry this report and say that the IDF is one of the most moral fighting forces in the world. It's just, you know, if it wasn't horrendous, it would be the most laughable, stupid, funny thing I've ever heard in my life. The most moral fighting force in the world that uses white phosphorus in civilian populations and loots and ravages just because it feels good, and uses human shields and tears down structures just because they want to make a nuisance for people over there. So once again, great job Israel on your highly moral activities in your war in Gaza. Just another bit of proof that Israel and the Zionists that run that country are among the worst people. Thank you. Good night.